Hey guys, this is the WalterFootball.com After Dark show for May 25th, 2023. It's Wildcard Wednesdays, so that means we're talking about a non-football topic during the summer. And as I said yesterday on the show, we're going to do a top 10 TV seasons of all time. 2 weeks ago, we did a top 10 TV scenes of all time. This is seasons now. And I'm joined by the capisfake.com owner, CEO, the vice president, the Andals and the First Men, Kenny Ortiz. Kenny, how are you? And how have you been the past couple of weeks?
Oh, it's been great. My wife and I are in the process of packing up our house to move from the grand north of Minnesota to Orlando, Florida. And we're moving in a few weeks. Very excited. We had a real estate agent over our house today to look through the house and tell us all the crap to fix so we can actually sell it for the most amount of money. And then I've been having some Twitter fights with people, which is always fun. So, but I'm finishing the day off, hanging out with you and enjoying a good Chateau Bordeaux, which is a good French blend of wine. I'm very bougie. That's why I drink red wine like that, French red wine.
I'm enjoying this nice Snapple iced tea. Very, very fancy as well. Wish Snapple would sponsor us. That'd be nice. Anyway, so I'm glad that you made that announcement that you're moving to Florida. Now I can't ruin a potential surprise like I did. It's like 3 months ago that I did that.
I don't know. It was a couple weeks. Yeah, a while back.
Yeah. So okay. So I'm not going to spoil anything anymore of your life. So So I'm excited to get into this. I really struggled. I know you did too. Like struggling to get down to a top 10. Really tough. Like I left some really good shows off the top 10. And I'll get into it and my thought process behind that. I don't know if you had any thoughts leading into this.
Yeah. A couple years ago, or I guess it was, I don't know how long ago, we did the best TV series. And then we did best TV scenes a few weeks back. And I just assumed, okay, there's a lot of the best TV shows overall. But I actually I was surprised how many TV shows didn't make this list for me. There are some TV shows that I think are great that actually would make my top 10 TV shows that actually I couldn't figure out one season that I thought belonged on this list. It was really hard. And I kind of realized also there are a lot of TV shows that only have one or two really good seasons. Mm-hmm. And then the show kind of falls off the cliff after that. Like, it's actually really, really hard to have a TV show that's good for like a bunch of seasons, 4 or 5 or more seasons. It's actually because I realized like how many of these shows actually have like terrible season 2, season 3, season 4, but their season 1 made my list because I thought season 1 was so good. And so I'll highlight them, but it's really remarkable how hard it is for a show to be good for multiple seasons.
Yeah, it is really tough. Most of my seasons in the top 10 are season 1s. I don't know how many you had. I had out of 10, it was 8. 8 were season 1s. And a lot of the shows I have, I'm like, man, this show kind of fell off a cliff. This show fell off a cliff. I stopped watching the show. In fact, the one show in my top 5, I stopped watching after season 2. I had no interest in going forward, but season 1 was just so amazing. I wonder if you're there as well. So I'm really looking forward to this. Patrick, who actually recommended this topic, says Twin Peaks season 3 is by far my favorite. Not a single scene wasted. Excellent music, huge and amazing cast. Not for the impatient viewer, but rewarding for those looking for deep analysis. We might be talking about Twin Peaks at some point. I know you won't be because you stopped watching after like 3 episodes, but hopefully you get into it as well.
Yeah, I think, you've talked about it. My wife and I started to watch it, and my wife just thought it was weird and couldn't do it. So as a married man, I try to watch television shows that my wife will appreciate.
Yeah, you have to. With me, my wife and I have different bedtimes. It kind of staggered, with our kids and stuff like that. I used to stay up at night, and then she used to get up in the morning. It's like now I watch stuff that she doesn't watch, and like she watches stuff that I don't watch anymore. So like that has changed. So yeah.
Let's be honest, Walt. You don't sleep. Let's be honest.
I don't sleep at all. I sleep like 4 hours a night. So Actually like fell asleep like on the couch like before this episode, like trying to put everything together. I just like zonked out because I actually barely sleep last night. I usually like sleep like pretty well for like 4 hours. But like if something's weighing on my mind, I can't go to sleep. And like last night, it was the fact that I forgot to put the dog poop bag out in the trash. And for some reason, it was just like in my head, I'm like, oh, I didn't do it. And I couldn't sleep because of that. It's just, I don't know. It's kind of weird, but
Nice.
that's why I couldn't sleep. Anyway, we have some honorable mentions. I have a lot as always. Like last time, I don't have 40 this time. I have 13. No, I have 14. Actually, I told you 12 before we started recording, and then I remembered two that I was going to put on the list. So I have 14 honorable mentions. I can run through them, and then you can run through what you have in honorable mentions. I assume you have fewer than I do.
No, I don't know. Actually, I got more than you, I think.
Okay, well, in that case, maybe you want to go first then.
Yeah, sure. Well, I didn't highlight specific seasons. I just thought about TV shows that I was considering, but I didn't actually determine which of the seasons was the best. But a couple shows I was thinking about quite a bit. Ted Lasso, great season 1. The later seasons have been good, not great. How about Tiger King, right? Tiger King season 1, crazy, not worthy of the top 10, but worthy of a quick mention.
Real quick. My wife and I did not get Tiger King. We heard all the hype, and we're like, okay, let's watch this. And we watched the first episode.
Ever.
We watched the first episode. We're like, what is this crap? Like, should we watch the second one? And we watched half of the second one. My wife's like, I can't watch this anymore. This is terrible. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I agree.
It's so bad. It's so bad, but it's kind of like staring at the sun. Like, it's not good for you, but you can't help but stare.
I don't understand why people watch. I don't know. Maybe you can enlighten me. I don't understand it.
I feel stupid for even having been entertained by it. Like I'm ashamed of myself. Right. I thought about shows like from like my childhood, Fresh Prince, Full House, Quantum Leap, Cheers. None of those shows made the list, but I did consider them. I also thought about like Law and Order, Criminal Minds, Prison Break, but like there's just none of those seasons stuck out enough. A couple shows though that I was surprised, like TV shows that I think are amazing, but I couldn't get them on the list. So Boardwalk Empire, couldn't get any seasons. Man, season 2 of Boardwalk is just phenomenal. I couldn't get it on my list. You're going to be surprised, but I could not get a season of Better Call Saul on my top 10. And I love Better Call Saul. It probably is in my top 10 TV shows of all time. Yeah, I haven't redone my top 10 since I watched that show, but I couldn't get one of the seasons on the list. So I'm not sure. I wonder if it made your list. Walking Dead, love the TV show. Couldn't get it on the list. The other Ozark. I mean, Ozark, the first 2 seasons of Ozark were just, I loved, couldn't get it on. Parks and Rec, love it. Couldn't get it on the list either. Chernobyl, HBO miniseries. It's only 1 season. It is phenomenal. But I couldn't get Gwen on my list. And then there's 3 other seasons I mentioned that I couldn't get on the list either. Oh, sorry, 5. Sorry, I'm already okay. I got more on my list here. Squid Games. I couldn't get Squid Games on my top 10. Phenomenal show. You recommended it. It's only 1 season. It came really close. Peaky Blinders season 2. Peaky Blinders. I don't know if we've ever talked about that or not. Irish mob in the 1920s. In Ireland, or I guess before World War I, actually. Phenomenal TV show. Couldn't get it on the list. Deadwood is only 3 seasons. Probably, I'm not even a Westerns fan, but if anyone's familiar with that, it takes place in the 1870s. It's an HBO show that is just phenomenal. See, Deadwood season 2, some of the best television you'll ever watch. 2 other shows that I love that just couldn't make the list here. Entourage, man, I know the bro quotient's kind of high, but season 2 of Entourage is as good as any, comedy. And then there's a show that was only 2 seasons long that my wife hates and thinks is ridiculous and I like. But it was on HBO. It's a show called How to Make It in America. Have you ever seen this show?
You told me about it. I have not seen it.
Oh, it's one of my favorite shows ever. I'm so sad that it didn't come up. Oftentimes on Twitter, people talk about it. Whenever people are talking about like shows that were canceled too quickly, almost like lots of people on Twitter mention How to Make It in America. It's fantastic. So I know that's a lot of honorable mentions there, but How to Make It in America season 1 pretty much would be my number 11 if I could if we had a top 11.
Oh, interesting. I'll have to check that out at some point. You will be proud of me because I started watching Succession on HBO. You recommended that to me. I think I'm about halfway through season one. I kind of stopped because I can usually watch stuff when when I'm working, but right now I'm in the middle of season previews, and that like requires like actual like I gotta make sure everything's correct. So I've stopped watching TV shows. Like I've taken a break while I'm doing that, but I'm more than halfway through. So like I said before, I'm going to post all that stuff when it's all done. Patrick saying I will also throw out Ash versus Evil Dead season one. Very funny, action packed argument could be a better zombie show than The Walking Dead. I haven't even heard of that. So Ash versus Evil Dead. I'll have to check that out. I don't know where it's on, but hopefully not Netflix because actually we got a warning today saying we have to prove that our Netflix is ours, and we've been using my sister's for like a decade, so hopefully they don't kick us off and we have to get our own. All right, let me let me get my I have 15 honorable mentions now. I remembered another one. Okay, so 24 season 5. That was the season where like they killed off every main character except for Jack Bauer and a couple others in the first like 30 minutes. It was like so intense. Like it's like bam, one main character dead, like bam, like two main characters dead. It's like insane. Like it was very intense season. Alice in Borderland season 1. This is alphabetical order, by the way. Alice in Borderland season 1. I've told you about this. I hope you've started watching this. Okay, it's on the top. It should be on the top of your list. I think it's better than Squid Game. Better Call Saul season 5, which I just added because I remembered I wanted to add it and I forgot. That was the season where Kim and Lalo had that standoff. I thought that was the best. Breaking Bad season 5, where everything went down at the end. I thought that was amazing. Curb Your Enthusiasm season 3. That was the season where Larry tries to open up a restaurant. That was like the club soda episode. I love that episode. Desperate Housewives season 1. This is a show that fell off a cliff, but Desperate Housewives season 1 was really good. Like really great mystery. If you're not familiar, like the person narrating the TV show is a woman who actually commits suicide because she got a letter in the mail, and from the dead, she's like narrating the show. And the other 4 housewives try to figure out like why she killed herself. It's really, really good season. And then the show kind of got a lot worse, but season 1 was really good. Friday Night Lights season 1. Amazing season. It was funny, like seasons 1, 3, and 5 of Friday Night Lights are great, and 2 and 4 were terrible. I don't know why. Maybe like season 2 got cut short because of the writer's strike, but it just wasn't good before it got cut off anyway. So kind of weird. Game of Thrones seasons 1 and 3. And we'll talk about another season later. Lost season 3. That was the season where Charlie was gonna die every time, and like Desmond kept trying to save him. And you had the Charlie death scene at the end. I thought that was a really good season of Lost. The OC season 1.
Nice.
It's a great show. I love the OC. I love the OC season 1, and then that's it. Squid Game season 1, the only season, obviously. So yeah, you mentioned that. I have This Is Us season 1. Mostly the first episode was really good, and there was a story where the 2 characters go to Memphis. I thought that was really, really good. I highly recommend This Is Us season 1, but then you can stop at watching it after that. Twin Peaks season 1. Which you started watching and then stopped. I think if you kept watching, I think you would like it. And then The Wire season 4, that was the season with the kids and stuff like that. So yeah, those are my honorable mentions. I don't know if you had any thoughts about those.
No, that's good. Now you we did have a rule, we self-imposed rule that in our top 10 only one show or one season per show.
Yes.
So you mentioned multiple seasons of like of other shows. That those shows may appear, and is that what I'm getting? That what you're alluding to?
Yeah. So okay, I mentioned Game of Thrones in my honorable mentions, seasons 1 and 3. So there might be another season of Game of Thrones in the top 10. But yeah, that's the stipulation we have, is only one season per show in the top 10.
Nice.
So you want to kick things off? We'll alternate. You go 10, I go 10, etc.
Yeah. My number 10 is Sherlock season 3. Are you a fan? Have you watched Sherlock much? Are you in this show?
That was the Benedict Cumberbatch one, right?
Yep.
I love that too. I thought about that. I couldn't nail down my favorite season of Sherlock, but I was a big fan. I actually thought season 2 personally, the one with the Hounds of Baskerville, and then the one where he's going head to head with Moriarty.
Mm-hmm. They were all very good. I particularly liked season. I love the ending, and so I felt like, I felt like, and Cumberbatch. Am I pronouncing his name right? Is it Cumberbatch? Is that pronounced?
Yeah.
He's. I've seen him in other stuff. He is absolutely amazing in that show, and so actually the reality is it was hard to pick which one. I think season 3, I give a slight edge, but I think you can make an argument for either one of the other 2 seasons.
Yeah, I thought I thought that was an amazing rendition of Sherlock. Are they done? Because they haven't had a season, I feel like, in like 4 years or so, like maybe
it's been
more.
several years. Yeah, I'm assuming they're done. I also like the long form. I mean, in essence, it's kind of like movies. I mean, you're basically just watching movies at that point, right? Because you get these long forms. Side note: my brother-in-law sent me a meme once, and he's like, no one's ever going to watch a 10-hour movie. That's ridiculous. But you cut it up into 10 parts and make it 10 episodes, and everyone binge watches it. It's like,
it's true. that is definitely true. I think it's better because like you get to have you get to get more into the characters and stuff like that. And
yeah, absolutely.
And like now people binge watch, but like back in the day, you used to watch 1 hour and then you'd have a whole week off. And I thought like, like on one hand, it's like brutal because like you can't watch the next episode for a while, but on the other hand, like you can do a lot of thinking and a lot of theorizing. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did with Lost. Like I would have multiple articles on the site about like Lost theories. I thought that was part of the fun, So right. It's interesting that like we've had different experiences watching Lost, whereas you binge watched it and I watched it live. I watched the whole thing live, like the very first episode I watched live. So it's kind of interesting that way. Patrick says this is us. Season 5 brought real world topics that had absolutely no relation to the main story. Yep, and it made me realize why I hated NBC. Yeah, I feel like they did that like seasons 3, 4, and 5. Like it was just so bad. Like season 2, I guess wasn't too bad, but it was just it really went downhill. But season 1 was awesome for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so you mentioned this in your honorable mentions. My number 10 is Prison Break season 1.
Ooh.
So like I have like a story here. So this was back in I think like 2007. Like I had just moved back to my parents' house from college, so I was like waiting to get my own place, and it was the preseason. So like I was like kind of like dying to watch Prison Break because I watched like the first couple episodes. I was like, this is a really cool show. And so like I watched all the preseason games and it was like probably like 2 a.m. like when I finished, and I was like, okay, I had all the DVDs and I'm like, okay, I can watch 3 episodes and it'll be like 4:15 a.m. then I can go to bed. And like 4:15 a.m. hit after 3 episodes. I'm like, all right, another one. And then like it was like 5 a.m. I was like, all right, another one. It was like 5:45 a.m. I was like, another one. And I kept going. And like eventually it was like 7:30. Like I don't know, like either my mom or my dad came downstairs and they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I can't stop watching Prison Break. This is like it's the most intense like show of all time. Like there are like major leaps that you have to accept. Like this is like so unrealistic. But at the same time, it's such a fun show. It's so intense. For those who didn't watch it, it's a guy who goes to prison and he does it intentionally. Like he goes to rob a bank and he doesn't even try to rob a bank. He just gets arrested and he just wants to go to prison. And he wants to meet this guy in prison called Lincoln. You find out that's his brother and he's like, I'm getting you out. And Lincoln's like, how? And then he reveals like he was the architect who designed the prison and he has the whole prison tattooed on his body. And so he has to do all these crazy things to get his brother, who's on death row, out of prison. And there's this whole like conspiracy too. Like there's people within the government who wanted to put his brother to death because of something that happened. And it's like this whole overarching story. And it's kind of cool. Like the show had like each season was its own thing. Like season 1 was the escape from the prison. Season 2 was like they're on the run from the FBI, which is like, as you know, I'm a big fan of going against the FBI. Season 3, they're trying to escape from a prison in Mexico. Season 4, they're actually going to get revenge, and they had a 5th season on Netflix, which I actually haven't watched yet. I was
We watched it.
Is it good?
Yeah, I mean, it's a downgrade from the others, but it was good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I was a big fan of that. It's like one of those things where you just can't stop watching, and that's why it's in my top 10. I know that's like TV critics like, oh, how can you watch? How can you like Prison Break? It's so like I don't know. It's like not a fancy type show with great writing or anything, and like it was a fun thing to watch, and that's why it's in my top 10.
My wife got me into it. My wife had watched the first season, and so like I actually started watching it toward the end of season 1, like episode 10 or something like that. So I had to go back and watch, having already seen the end of season 1. I had to go back and like watch the beginning, and then we watched season 2. Season 2 was okay. Season 3, when they're in Mexico, was lame. And I thought Prison Break was the kind of show that's like great start, kind of falls down. It's not as bad as some other shows. The fall is not as bad as I've seen others.
Yeah, that's when it started going downhill too, because I watched it with my wife, and she got really into it, seasons 1 and 2, and then she stopped watching in the middle of season 3 because she's like, this is like the same thing but worse. Like like the appeal of season 1 is like he had the whole tattoo on his body thing, and like he had a whole plan. But like the prison in Mexico, he had no advantages at all, like just his intellect, you know. So it's kind of silly that he was able to get out of there.
Yeah.
All right, what's your number 9?
My number 9, this show is actually kind of cheesy. It falls apart pretty quickly. And once the reveals happen, it's like, but season 1 of Heroes was awesome. Do you remember the promos like in 2006? Like, save the cheerleader, save the world.
Yep.
Like that was like, it was like every TV commercial, and you're watching it, and there's all these people discovering they have superpowers around the world. You have no idea how they're connected, and slowly the show kind of pieces them together, and the reveals, and like, oh, who is Claire? And it was Heroes. Season 1 was awesome writing, so exciting, so intriguing. But once you kind of figured out what was going on, it was totally boring. Like they just, it was the novelty of it. It was the oh, this is interesting, this is unique, this is like Marvel, but actually kind of better, kind of like regular people just discovering stuff. And I just thought it was absolutely fantastic, and completely fell off a cliff after by season 3 or 4, it was terrible.
Well, we agree, because my number 8 was Heroes season 1.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Yeah. So I loved that season 1. When did it fall off for you? I wonder, because I completely agree that the show fell off a cliff. But like, was it season 2 right away, or was it like season 3? Like, when do you think?
Season 2 was okay. It just like, and then season 3 was just like, okay, I'm done with this. And I kind of slogged through I watched all the way through season 4, but I didn't enjoy. Season 2 is mediocre. Season 3 and 4 I thought were awful, and I just was bored.
Right. So for me, it was so the first season, I agree, it was like one of the best seasons of all time. And I remember like we used to have like discussions on the forums of my website about Heroes, like just those huge discussions. I remember talking to my cousin about it. We're like, oh, like which of these abilities are the best? You know, like we'd have like great discussions. Siler was a really cool villain.
Oh,
yeah. Like all that stuff was awesome. I thought seasons 2 and 3 were good. I was still into it, but not nearly as great as season 1. And then like I don't know what season it was, but whenever they went into those like carnival people, and like it's a shame because like I like the actor, the guy who's also on Prison Break, Teabag. He was like, I thought he was just wasted there, and I thought that aspect of the show was so boring. In fact, like I really struggled to go through. I watched it to the end, and it was just so bad. But yeah, it's kind of amazing how far it fell off a cliff. I remember it used to be like Heroes used to be on at 8 o'clock, and then Chuck was on at 9, or no, it was the opposite. Like Chuck was on at 8 and Heroes on at 9. And I remember like at first I was like, okay, I'm watching Chuck, but I'm really looking forward to Heroes. And then a couple years later, I'm like, oh, I love Chuck. And then like, I kind of don't want to watch Heroes, but I'll watch it. Like, it's kind of crazy how it reversed like that.
Yeah. I actually may at some point go back and watch season one, and I don't know if I'll like it as much as I did back then. I mean, television is so evolved. It was 17 years ago, whatever, when it first came out. But and it was all over me. I mean, it felt like all of my friends were talking about it. It was like we'd whisper to each other, just save the cheerleader, save the world. Like that was the thing, and I still remember it all these years later. It was excellent.
Yeah, how all the pieces fit together and stuff like that, I thought was brilliant. It's really a shame that the show fell off a cliff like that, because I think if they kept it up, it could have been one of the all time best shows, but it just really got bad.
Yeah.
All right, so because I did my number 8, I think you could do your number 8, and then I'll do my number 9.
All right, my number 8. This show did not fall off the cliff nearly as much, but season 1 of Stranger Things was awesome. I loved Stranger Things season 1. Part of the novelty of it, again, it was like it's a lot of 80s stuff, nostalgic. I thought it would, the discovering the stuff, learning, the Dungeons and Dragons kind of illusions type stuff, Elle fighting the Demogorgon, and just all this cool stuff. I've enjoyed the rest of the series. My wife and I are still watching it. I like it. I'll probably finish it until they stop making the show. But and I liked season 2 and 3 and 4. They've been good, but season 1 of Stranger Things was my number 8, top 8. Yeah, that was phenomenal.
Well, my number 6 is Stranger Things season 1.
Look at this! Look at this!
It's a nice overlap here. Yeah, I mean, you said it, like the novelty was amazing. It took me back to like the 80s. We were kids in the 80s. So all that stuff was really cool to see, but it's such a creepy show too. Like all the mystery and stuff like that, like what happened to the kid who disappeared. Like what is this Demogorgon thing they keep talking about? Like what is the deal with 11? Like a lot of really cool mysteries in season 1 that like, I feel like the mystery wasn't quite there in further seasons, and like the novelty wore off a little bit more as each season progressed. I thought season 3 was horrible. The one like where the Russians were in the mall, like underneath the mall, there was this like labyrinth where like they were doing all these things. Like I thought that was terrible. I actually like season 4 more than season 3 this past season, where you had I actually think that was one of your scenes, if I'm not mistaken, like running up the hill with the redheaded girl. So like I thought that like it was a nice way to rebound from like a bad season 3. Like I really did not enjoy season 3. I'm like, this is not a good TV show anymore. But so I'm glad they rebounded. Hopefully season 5 is going to be even better, and they kind of learn from their mistakes. But I don't think there's going to be anything quite like season 1. I thought like watching that was just like such a great experience. I don't think we're going to get anything like that again from the show.
Yeah, I totally agree. The novelty element of it is really what made the opening, the first few episodes, really just stand out. That's what most people are talking about, man. Particularly if you are, in your late 30s through mid 40s, when you're like, oh, I was a kid in the 80s. That was the throwbacks to those, or the homage that they're on to that era is really cool.
Yeah, for sure. Let me get to my number 9, because I feel like if we keep postponing this, I may never get to my number 9. I'm kind of wondering if you have this in your top 10 as well. It is Homeland season 1. Have you ever watched Homeland?
I've only seen a handful of episodes from a later season. My roommates were watching it, so I plopped down on the couch with them, but never saw the first season.
Oh yeah, I thought season 1 by far was the best one. I thought further seasons were kind of bad. I thought season 2 was okay. Actually, season 2 was pretty good, and then I think it fell off a cliff. It just like it got way into much like Claire Danes' character being crazy and stuff like that, and I thought they did way too much of that. But season 1 was awesome. You have this war hero coming home. And Claire Danes, I can't remember her name on the show, but Claire Danes, her character like was very suspicious of this guy. She thought he was like a terrorist, and he was going to do bad, and like you just never knew. It was like a huge mystery, and like people like were calling her crazy and stuff like that. And I think that's where it stemmed from, like that whole arc. But yeah, she kept getting proven wrong, and then she's like, okay, maybe he's not, but then you kind of see stuff that like maybe he is, and it's like the whole season was a mystery as to whether or not this guy, this war hero, was either like a good or a bad guy. And I thought like just like wondering about that. I remember watching that live, and I was like, man, is he good? Is he bad? Like, I was like always thinking about that, and like shows that make me wonder about that kind of stuff, like really rank highly. So, yeah, I definitely recommend season 1, and then just you don't have to watch anything else.
Is Kiefer Sutherland in that show as well?
No,
No. Okay.
I don't think so. No.
Okay, I can't remember, but yeah, it's been, you know, it was on network TV and then moved to Showtime, didn't it? Wasn't it
No, I
on?
think
Didn't it change stations at some point, or was it always Showtime?
I thought it was always Showtime, but I could
Okay,
be wrong.
okay, I don't remember, but my dad was really into that show.
Okay. Yeah, we really got into it. I think that was also the time when I was like right before I moved out my parents' house. So like, yeah, my parents really loved that show too. We'd watch it together. And then like I remember I think it was like season 3 when we were watching it together. And I was like, man, this is not good anymore. I really don't want to watch this anymore. But like they still like it. I feel like both me and my parents are completionists. Like we'll keep watching stuff even though it's bad. Like I've stuck with horrible shows just because I'm a completionist.
You're a better man you're more loyal than I am. I'm out. I'm like, listen.
Yeah, maybe I don't know if it's a good thing. I feel like I should just cut ties of bad stuff, you know. Anyway, all right, I think we are caught up. Although I've done my 6, so you could do number 7, and then I'll do my 7.
All right, number 7. This TV show, probably more than any other, had a first season that I loved, and then the show completely fell off a cliff, and I absolutely hate the rest. I hate the rest of the show, to be quite frank. And that is Westworld, season 1. Have you seen Westworld?
It may or may not be in my top.
Okay, the first season, you know, with the multiple timelines, the character development, the storyline in general, just the whole concept. You think you fully have figured out what's going on, and there's a major twist, and then you realize, oh, actually, there's a different twist, and then there are these random callbacks to, with the homegirl, the girl's, I can't remember her name, the poem she keeps reciting, or the line, the poetic line, these dangerous delights or whatever. My brain's not remembering all the details. Anyway, just phenomenal acting. And then the moment when you realize who Bernard actually is, I mean, there's so many moments of twist. And just when you think you figured it out, you didn't. It is one of the best. I thought Westworld had the potential to like be the greatest show of all time. Like that was the trajectory I thought it was. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to surpass all of my favorite TV shows. And at the time when it was, Game of Thrones and Sopranos were in my top 2 at the time, probably still are. But I thought Westworld was on a trajectory to beat those. And it completely fell off a cliff. Second season was really bad. The third season, I got to about episode 4, and my wife and I were just like, wait, what are we like? This is terrible. So I didn't even get through season 3. It was so bad. I don't know if it's good or not. It was the first 4 episodes were terrible. And it's not even like the same TV show from season 1 to season 3.
So this is my number 5, Westworld season 1. I've been looking at the rest of my top 10 to see if we have more overlap. I know for a fact that we won't have complete overlap because I know you haven't watched my numbers 3 and 4. But Westworld season 1 had some of the greatest twists, I think, in TV history. Like you said it, like who or what Bernard was. One of the most famous quotes in TV history, I think, what door? I thought that was an amazing scene, and that wasn't even the greatest twist in the season. Like that was who the Man in Black was, the Ed Harris character. It was just a crazy season. You're right. I thought watching it live, I'm like, man, I love the show. I can't wait for season 2. Maybe it's not as good, but I think even if it's like 90% of this, it's still going to be an amazing show. And it was like maybe 9%. Like season 2 was really bad. There was I thought like one good aspect of it where I can't quite remember because I kind of like blocked it in my head, where this guy kept repeating his life. Like he kept waking up and he kept repeating his life. I thought that was like the one good aspect of season 2. But I never even watched season 3 because I know I said I'm a completionist, but like I just didn't realize it was on, and then it came on, and then like my wife was like, "Oh, did you hear Westworld season 3 was on?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Do you want to watch it?" She's like, "No." So I'm like, "Okay, I guess we're not watching this." So this is before my son was born. So like, I guess technically, like now I could watch it. I just don't have a desire to get back into it. And plus, like I don't quite remember what happened in season 2, and I have to rewatch season 2, and season 2 wasn't good. But I firmly remember season 1 being so amazing. Definitely one of the best seasons of all time.
Yeah, it was excellent. I watched it when I was single, and then I got married. My wife and I watched it, and she loved it. And then we watched season 2 together, and she's just like, that was really bad. And it's like, yeah. And then we started season 3, and we're just like, I mean, it was terrible. It's so bad. They completely changed the whole like premise of the show. They're like, the robots are walking around in real life, and you're just like they leave the park, and it's just like, what? It's just this war between androids and humans, and it's just not good writing. It's just like random violence. Like this isn't good.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a shame that I like you have to wonder like how does the show get that bad? But then we have more examples of that coming up, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I'd highly recommend Westworld season 1 is as good as television you'll ever see. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah, it could stand alone by itself. You can watch season 1 of Westworld and then just be done with it. You don't have to go to season 2. You might be tempted, and I would say no, don't do it.
You'll be disappointed.
Stop. Yeah, just stop. Like even like Anthony Hopkins he's like barely in season 2, right? Like he's like
right.
I think he's in for like 1 episode or something.
Right.
But like he's an amazing, obviously one of the best actors of all time. Like he had an amazing role in season 1 too. So if you're looking for something to watch just for 10 episodes or so, however long it was, I definitely recommend that.
Yeah.
All right, let me do my number 7, and this is something you mentioned as well, I think in your honorable mentions. So this is the season 1 of Walking Dead. So Walking Dead is another show that really fell off a cliff. Like if you keep going, like even season 2 was not nearly as good as season 1. Season 2 was the one where they're on the farm and they do a lot of talking, and like people made fun of it, calling the Talking Dead, and then they actually spun off and did a Talking Dead show, which is pretty funny. But then season 3 with the governor, I thought was good until they kept going with the governor. Like they didn't go beyond it. I thought the first big mistake the show made outside of talking too much in season 2 was so they dealt with the governor in season 3, but they didn't kill him off. So he came back in season 4, and I thought there was going to be a redemption arc with him because for those who you watch, I don't know if you watched this part, but when the governor met with his family and he got in with them and like he was like kind of saved them, I thought they were going to redeem his character and then he was going to become a good guy, because like I thought that would be an interesting way to go. But what happened was like he became a bad guy again. I'm like, this is a same thing as season 3. Like the show has not moved forward at all. Right. So this show has been guilty of that. Like they just stick with one theme for way too long. They play it out. Like even Negan I thought was amazing. Like you know, everyone's like,
he really reinvigorated the franchise.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like who'd he kill? Like that. Those like 6 or 8 episodes with Negan to start, I thought were amazing. And then like they just kept going. Like now Negan's still alive, or I don't know. I don't know what happens at the end of the show. I didn't even watch the end because they had like stormtroopers and stuff at the end. This is so stupid. But season 1, it was pins and needles the whole time. Like I was like, first of all, when Rick wakes up in the hospital, my wife recommended that as one of the best scenes of all time when he first wakes up. Yeah, when he wakes up and then they go into that mall in episode 2 and stuff like that. And like they smear the blood in a zombie carcass stuff on their bodies so they don't get detected. And then it's like, man, like these characters might die at any time. Like just like really intense. It was kind of like even a better version of Prison Break, like just the whole pins and needles. There's only 6 episodes, but like by the time they get to the CDC in Atlanta, there's that dynamic as well, because you could tell like something was really wrong, because there's like, okay, when they get to the CDC, it's like everything will be fine, right? And then like something weird is going on. Like there's a ticker ticking down and like they don't know what it is, and then the guy in the CDC whispers something in Rick's ear and like what's he saying? So like the first 6 episodes, which is the first season, I thought were so good.
I was really, really struggling to for Better Call Saul and Walking Dead are the 2 shows I mentioned that I wanted them on the list. I feel like they deserve to be on the top 10, but couldn't figure out what to take off. And Walking Dead season 1, right, was phenomenal. Season 6, though, when Negan's in it, it kind of reinvigorates. I watched all the way through season 7. My wife actually finished the series. I think it goes to like season 12. I mean, it was long. My wife watched it all the way through, and she just kept giving me updates. Like, oh, what happened now? She was just like verbally updating for me. So I was like, I don't have the energy to keep watching, but she did. So she kind of, but like, there are moments throughout the series where it kept pulling you back in. And season 1, as you said, it really is some of the best television you ever watch.
I couldn't keep going when there were stormtroopers in the show. I just like, come on, man, like, this is so stupid. All right, you have let's clear out the 5 through 10. So that means you have back-to-back 6 and 5.
All right, so I've not given my 6th or my 5th.
Yeah, and I have, because you mentioned them.
All right. I would imagine my number 6 is going to be higher on your list. Okay. I couldn't figure out which season to rank, and that is from this your greatest television show of all time, Lost.
Okay,
it's my number 6 season. I have to go season 1. I know a lot of people talk about some other seasons, but to me, season 1, it's similar to like with Stranger Things and Heroes. There's a novelty to Lost. I mean, it was so unique, so different, but the show does not fall off the way those do. Lost is very good all the way through, and easily in the top 10 of best TV shows of all time. I know it's your number 1. It's fantastic TV show. I could not figure out, do I like season 2 more or season 3? I was struggling, but I think the initial learning that the first time you see the polar bear, that then you see the smoke monster, and then you start to figure out who Linus is, and you start getting some of the flashbacks. I mean, all of the things that happen in season 1, every episode you're sucked in, you're enthralled. My top 6 are really close together, but I had to. There are 5 others I think are better, but Lost season 1 is as good a television. I feel like I've said this for all of them already, but it really is. It's as good as television you'll ever watch. Season 1 is fantastic.
So I don't disagree. This is definitely in my top 4. So I'll save it for later. Okay. Let's just do your number 5.
All right, my number 5. This was really hard for me to figure out the order of this. This was from Breaking Bad, Breaking Bad is my 3rd best TV show of all time, but the 5th best season of all time is season 3. I mean, there are several seasons from Breaking Bad that can make the list, but season 3 was my favorite. Season 1 is a little slow. Season 2, you're really starting to learn who this character is, but season 3 is where Walter White really kind of comes into his own. At that point, they're making lots of meth. They're all kinds of crazy things. Breaking Bad, such a great show, and season 3 is my 5th all-time best season ever.
I think you can go seasons 3, 4, or 5 as the best. I mentioned season 5 before, when all that stuff goes down. Like the final 3 episodes of the show were amazing. Season 4 had the stuff that happens to Gus Fring. And then season 3, right? I mean, that's when Jesse shows up to kill Gale. And that was when they really start making the meth in Gus's lab. Which was like, I thought you could definitely say that was the best season of Breaking Bad. They had that episode where they were stuck in there because of the fly, and like that was such a great episode. It's such a great episode. It's like such great character development. Like there was no action at all, but like just like one episode of them trying to catch a fly in the meth lab. I thought that was just so good. So I remember season 3 vividly. So yeah, you could definitely, like I said, you could put any of these seasons in the top 10.
It was really hard to looking back. I was looking back through the episode list this week, just like, oh man, and I honestly, it's hard to nail it down, but Breaking Bad is such a great show. It needed a mention. So I picked season 3, but as you said, you can go with any one of those. Season 1 is probably the only season I think interestingly enough, is the only one that I think I could not make an argument for being the best season of the series.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it starts a little slowly. It's still really good. Don't get me wrong, but like it's like, yeah, it's definitely the weakest of the seasons, and like you kind of have to stick with it a little bit. Like someone might start watching it and say, like, I know my mom started watching it and she's like, or maybe it was my dad. I can't remember which one, but it was like they told me it was like, this is kind of slow. I can't watch this. And I was like, just stick with it. And they didn't, unfortunately, but like, it's like, it's a little slow, but it's still really good. So, I mean, obviously extremely well acted with Bryan Cranston and, the guy who played Jesse,
Aaron Paul.
Aaron Paul. That's right. So yeah, it was one of the best shows of all time. Obviously, you could put any season there. I'll do my number 4. So Twin Peaks season 3, which Patrick mentioned before. Twin Peaks season 1 was an honorable mention of mine. Twin Peaks season 3 I thought was the best. And I've told you this before. Is like they had a cut scene in season 1 or 2 where one person says to the other, "I'll see you in 25 years." And David Lynch, who made the show, planned it the whole time. He planned to get everyone back who was still alive 25 years later, just to see what happened. And the end of season 2, you had the main character Dale Cooper. He just like something bad happens to him and you wonder, I was like, is this how it ends? Like it just ends so poorly for this main character. But no, 25 years later, he had a plan to bring everyone back. And then you find out what happens to him. I thought the Kyle MacLachlan stuff, the guy who played Dale Cooper, the main character, was just amazing. He played 3 different characters in season 3 so well. I thought it was just so well acted, but like there's a lot of crazy stuff. I think what Patrick said was the best. Like there was no scene that was wasted. There's one episode, episode 8 in season 3, which is the craziest hour of TV I've ever seen in my life. In this episode, it starts with the 9 Inch Nails performing at this tiny bar. A guy gets shot. And as he's dying on the ground, these demons show up and put his bodily organs back inside him. Then there's an explosion. There's a nuclear explosion. Then there's like a bug that comes out of an egg, and then there's and there's these like zombie people who like recite this like a poem on the radio to make everyone fall asleep, and then the bug that crawled out of the egg crawls into this woman's mouth, and you kind of figure out like what that was. Kind of like solves like a mystery. Like this is one episode of this show. Like this show is incredible.
What is happening?
It's something you'd have to watch. I thought it was amazing. The ending was great. It was chilling too. Like I talked about like most famous quotes from TV shows. When one character says to the other, "Wait, what year is it?" At the end, you're like, "Oh my god!" Like this is what's happening, and like so it's like I just get like goosebumps like thinking about the ending and like the final episode. There's this one scene in a car and like these two people are driving together in a car in complete like darkness. That's at night. It's like complete darkness, just like silent. Like they're just sitting there. There's no dialogue for like 5 minutes, or at least it felt like 5 minutes. And like it just like it was like perfect. It was like you're like they would have nothing to say to each other right now. And it's just like such a like an eerie vibe. It's just like such an amazing show. I love season 3. It had one of my favorite scenes of all time where like one character goes like, "I am the FBI," and you're like you could see like if you want to have fun, just like go to YouTube and search like "I am the FBI" reactions from Twin Peaks. Like people are like they're like cheering and stuff like that. It's really cool. And then one of the best scenes of all time, which I mentioned last week, where it's Audrey's last dance, where she wakes up in this like what seems to be like a mental hospital. I highly recommend it. I can't recommend the show enough to you.
Nice. I mean, it is on my list of things to get to one day when I'm done being a PhD student and my wife is willing to put up with it.
Well, hopefully, tell her I highly recommend it, and maybe she'll give it another chance. All right, what is your number 4?
All right, my number 4. Oh, I haven't done number 4. That's right. I did 5 and 6. So my number 4 is similar to Breaking Bad. The show is just so good. I loved it. It's fantastic TV show. I had to make my list. I couldn't nail it down, but got to go with The Wire season 3. The Wire is just, whenever you look at lists online of like the best TV shows of all time, The Wire is consistently near the top of the list on pretty much every list, and for good reason. The only season, like there were 5 seasons. Season 2 I thought was okay, but not great. Season 5 really was down. Seasons 1, 3, and 4 I just absolutely loved. Seasons 1 and 3 really are phenomenal. And I really struggled season 1, season 3, season 1, season 3. I think the reason I love season 3 so much is after season 1 they're Baltimore, they're with the drug dealers. In season 2 they're with the guys down at the docks, and they really go away from the Baltimore drug dealers. And then when they came back to the storyline in season 3 with the original guys from season 1, it was sort of like this, like, oh yeah, we're back to where we wanted to be. And so there was a sort of like a reinvigorating that happened in season 3 with me watching the show. And I assume that maybe because season 2 was so different than season 1, that they were like every season was going to be like that. But then they went back to the storyline of season 1, and that's really the Avon's character development is phenomenal. And obviously, he ends up killing. I talked about the great, one of the greatest scenes of all time a couple weeks ago. I'm having a brain fart. Stringer Bell, thank you. And so just like the things that happen in that entire series, season 3 really is kind of the pinnacle of that. That really when Omar comes into his own. Omar becomes such a great character in that season. It is the Wire, man. You got to get up on the wire. You got to get back up on that mother wire. It's so good, dude. So good.
Yeah, I mean, The Wire is an amazing show. I think I would have gone season 4, the one with the kids and stuff like that. But season 3, I debated between season 3 and 4 as to which season was the best of The Wire. Yeah, season 3 had the Stringer Bell stuff. It had the mayoral race, I think.
Yep.
With the Littlefinger, you got to love that he was there, kind of playing like the same character almost.
Yep.
And yeah, I think you're right. Like, season 2 was not great. Season 1 was amazing. Season 2 not as great. And I think that they kind of realized their mistake, and it seemed like they wanted to explore all the areas of Baltimore. And I don't know if they wanted to like leave the drug thing entirely, but it seemed like that was their plan, and they realized, okay, this drug thing is like so interesting that we have to go back to it. And then you had like the Amsterdam thing, which is like hilarious.
So
when I went to Baltimore, I was actually at a wedding, and I was like, oh guys, because like I was talking to some locals in Baltimore who were at this wedding. I'm like, hey guys, where's Amsterdam? And like these are like Zoomers, and they're like, what's Amsterdam? I'm like, okay, you guys suck. So anyway, and I was like, to continue that, I was like, that's where you can get drugs. You can get drugs here, and they're like, you can get drugs anywhere here. I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
Dude,
but
so it's Amsterdam, man.
I know. It's such an amazing show. Yeah. So I think what you were saying makes sense, where they wanted to go away from the drug thing, and then they went back to it. So it's like refreshing that you had a show that could have derailed. It could have easily been like Westworld, but it didn't. It went back. It went to its roots until season 5, like the whole newspaper thing.
Yeah,
and like I at least had some admiration for the newspaper thing, because I was a journalism major, and then like obviously I'm a writer for a living and stuff like that. And something in season 5 I'll never forget. Like, this is one of my favorite things of the show. I didn't like season 5, but this is like the one aspect of season 5, the one where the writer, he wakes up in the middle of the night, and he's like having a panic attack because he thinks that he got something wrong in one of his articles, and he wanted to change it, and it turned out that he didn't get it wrong. I have had that sensation so many times in my life, especially when I used to write for a newspaper. I used to write for the Center Daily Times, which is like a newspaper in the middle of PA, and then I used to write for the Westchester Daily Local, which is like an hour away from here. I used to have the same panic attack. I used to wake up and be like, wait, I think I got this fact wrong. I got to email my editor like real quick. And then I would check it and be like, I got it right. I'm like, okay. Like, man, this is like, oh, thank goodness. It's just like, it's funny how that's like one aspect of the show, which most people wouldn't get, like really stuck with me. But yeah, I definitely loved season 3, season 4.
Nice.
Okay. My, let me get to my number 3. So this is something you haven't watched either. It's The Haunting of Hill House season 1. It's actually the only season. They've done a series. It's like The Haunting of Hill House, The Haunting of Bly Manor, And they did one recently. It's called The Midnight Club, which is pretty good. There was one about vampires too. That was like the third one they did, which wasn't as good. The Haunting of Hill House was such an amazing show. If you like horror at all, you might think this is the best horror show of all time, or maybe even the best like horror anything of all time. It's so well written, and it's like terrifying too, because like there's like these ghosts that haunt this family. So like what happens is, the show opens up with these kids. There's like 5 kids, and the dad and the family is like, "Come on, we got to get out of this house." Like you're like, and like they're like, he's like, "You have to be quiet." And like you see the doorknob turn in this kid's room, and like dad's like keeping his mouth closed, and then like the doorknob stops turning. He's like, "All right, we got to go, we got to go." And like he runs these kids out of the house, and the kid's like, "What about mom?" He's like, "No, we got to go, we got to go." And he just drives away. And like you see the mom like running up the stairs, and like you see like something's wrong with her, and then they go into the present time. So this is like in the past. And so like these kids were like basically haunted for their entire lives by these apparitions that they saw in this house that they used to live in. And each kid was haunted by something different. And I mentioned like one of my best scenes of all time, the revelation of like what the bent neck lady is. Like the youngest daughter is haunted by this ghost called the bent neck lady. But one of the best twists of all time. Like once you get to the backstory, the bent neck lady is just amazing. But like this show's so well written. Like I have a couple examples. Like there's like one scene where the 2 girls are upstairs and they can't get this door open. It's like locked. And you see this like these footsteps behind the door, and you're like, sometimes you see that in horror shows, like, okay, it's just a scare tactic. But like that was like episode 3, and like you go to episode 9, you actually see what happens from the other side of the door. So like they go back to it. There's another scene where this kid who's like hangs out in this tree house, the youngest, the son, he hangs out in this tree house. And like he's in like the youngest son, like when he's grown up, he says like the only thing I liked about that house is the tree house. The other character's like, what tree house? And like you think that like, all right, well, maybe she didn't see the treehouse, but then you find out like why there was some confusion there. There's like something similar where the one of the women was like, "Oh, I was in the nursery," and she tells the maid, and the maid's like, "What are you talking about?" Like it just has this confused look on her face, and it's like something that like happens in like episode 5, and you just kind of like forget about it. And like episode 9 or 10, they come back to it, and you figure out like why there was some confusion there. Like everything circles back, like everything is like well thought out, and is extremely well acted, but like the storytelling of this is just so great. And it's like I said, it's so scary too. I think it's one of the best shows of all time, I think. But like for one season, there was only one season, and then that's it. The Haunting of Bly Manor, they have like similar actors, but it's a completely different actor, different like characters and story. So like this is just like, I think it's like 10 episodes. It's like one of the best 10 episode things I've ever seen, and it's just it sucks that there's no season 2 of this, because I feel like there could be, but maybe it's best that there's not, because we've seen so many shows fall off a cliff.
Right. What platform or channel is it on?
Netflix.
Oh, it's Netflix. Okay.
Yeah, The Haunting of Hill House. So good. It's so good, man. Like,
nice.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's episode 6 is all about the bent neck lady, and like once you find out like who she was in the past, you're like, oh my god, this is crazy. This is something I'll never forget.
Now, I'm not a big horror fan. I mean, life is scary enough, so I mean, the potential for who might hold public office is scary. The potential for taxes is scary. I mean, there's all sorts of things that are scary in life to me. So the idea that you're going to intentionally introduce more scary things just seems exhausting, but maybe I'll give it a shot.
That's fair, but then you also have to remember this is not real life, so you can you can be you can have some fun and then go back to the real world, which you're right. I think there are a lot of scary things.
I mean, the Sixers losing in round 2 again was horrifying for me. I mean, there's a lot of horrifying things in life. Joel
Embiid has never been out of the second round.
It's unbelievable, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. Stackhouse says season 3 of SpongeBob SquarePants is up there for me. I think we are too old. I don't know. I don't want to speak for you, but we're the same age. So I
never watched SpongeBob.
Yeah, me neither. We're too old. We're boomers here.
Sorry.
He says personally I didn't like the pilot of Lost, so I never watched, but have heard good things. Yeah, do definitely watch it. And he says Heroes was good. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, that I highly recommend Lost. All right, Kenny, you are up for your number 3.
All right, top 3. Man, number 3, another one, the TV show that just totally fell off a cliff. But the first season, I seriously thought this might have been my number 1. I really struggled in my top 3 here. This season right here, this was fantastic. It's True Detective season 1. I mean, if no one's ever seen it, it's an HBO show. It's only 3 seasons. Every season is a totally different storyline, different location, different actors. It's supposed to be the same idea, the same premise, but it just doesn't accomplish the same thing. Season 2 is just C minus. Season 3 is a little bit better than season 2, but bleh. Season 1 though was phenomenal because it's a storytelling. So it's Matthew McConaughey, who is a phenomenal actor. He plays this, total like drunkard, plays this like total drunkard ex-detective who's just bananas, and you don't realize it. And he's telling the story of what happened, and he's filling in all the parts. And just like, and then you realize like, oh, like, just there were hints along the way of who we should be looking at. Suspenseful, great actor. And then there's Woody Harrelson's character is great, and just some funny one-liners. It's really good, like kind of brevity, kind of like levity moments throughout the show. My wife and I quote sometimes. It's actually pretty regularly. My wife and I quote. We watched this show when we first got married 3 years ago, and we randomly quote things from this show regularly. It is absolutely awesome, and I literally could have been number 1.
Interesting. It's something that has like entered my head as something that should have been in the top 10, but it's something like I don't think I could go back and watch it, and that's why it didn't make my top 10. Like is like a great a season for sure, but it was something that like it was so slow paced and stuff like that. Extremely well acted, like you said, but very slow paced that like I can't go back and watch it. Like everything else in my top 10, I have watched multiple times, or once I watched multiple times. Like Prison Break season 1, I watched it like 3 times. Homeland, watched it twice. Heroes, watched it I think 3 times. Walking Dead, watched it I think 3 times. Stranger Things a couple of times. Westworld, I think twice. Twin Peaks season 3 twice. Haunting Hill House twice. And then the top 2 I've watched at least 3 times. So this is something I could never watch again. And maybe in like 20 years or so when I completely forget everything. Maybe then, but like it just I don't know. That's the reason why it didn't make my top 10.
It's an interesting barometer. Like, could I watch this again? Because some of these shows on my top 10, I would say they were awesome the first time, but I don't even know that I would go back and I don't know that I would go back and rewatch Sherlock season 3, to be honest. Even though it was in my top 10.
So Alex here is asking, are we talking full season or just episode 1 with the Woody Harrelson sex scene?
No, I'm talking about all of season 1.
Nice. All right. Timmy Boy says, have you ever seen Mr. Robot? I have not. Have you?
I never heard of it.
Yeah, I haven't either. It sounds familiar, actually, now that I think about it. I don't know. I'll have to look into it, but yeah, I have not. All right, my number 2. Actually, we have another comment here. All right, good evening. My number 2. It's just I don't see these live. It pops up this comment. I'm like, just click on it. My number 2 is Game of Thrones season 4. So I had to figure out which Game of Thrones season was the best. And I thought about season 8 and like all that great stuff that happened season 8 and like season 7 when Gendry was running at record speed to the wall. Like, maybe these seasons were great, or whenever Ed Sheeran was by the campfire. I just couldn't get enough of that scene, even though I didn't even know who Ed Sheeran was at the time. But then like when people told me, I'm like, oh, this is lame. So it ended up between seasons 3 and 4, because season 3 was the Red Wedding, and we both had the Red Wedding as our number 1 scene in TV history. So I went with season 4. I just thought that so much more happened in season 4. There wasn't like the number one scene, but it may have been like in that show, it might have been like 2, 3, 4, 5. It was like you had the purple wedding to begin the season 4, and then 3 consecutive episodes to close out the season. You had Tyrion's trial. Then you had the fight between the Mountain and Oberyn Martell, and then in the final episode of season 4, you had Tyrion killing his dad on Father's Day, which it was pretty funny. Even though like the show could have hinted more that Tywin Lannister was being poisoned by Oberyn Martell this entire time. That's why he was constipated on the toilet. So it was just like that's when Game of Thrones was at its best, and that was the final great season of Game of Thrones. Seasons 5 and 6 were good. There were a lot of good stuff in there, like season 5. I believe season 5 was Hardhome, if I'm not mistaken, and then season 6 was Battle of the Bastards and the Burning of the Sept. So like there was a lot of good stuff in
Hold the Door
5.
was in season 6.
Yeah, right. Hold the Door season 6. So a lot of good stuff in seasons 5 and 6, but some
bad
creeping in too. And then like season 7 just got so bad.
Right. Terrible.
Right. So but I thought season 4 was my favorite, just looking back at it. But really, I think 1, 3, and 4 could have definitely been there. 2 was really good too as well. I thought I guess the one knock about season 4 was that they didn't bring in Lady Stoneheart. But they didn't do that at all, and they went with zombie polar bear instead as their big twist. So that was the only disappointment. But like, I don't want to dock the show for that, because the character who would have played Lady Stoneheart, she started another show, so she was pretty obligated there. But I thought when that show ended, she would come back, and that kind of like the timing of it coincided with the zombie polar bear. I'm like, okay, this character's done her show. The D&D said that there's going to be a major twist they've been talking about for years. I'm like, this has to be Lady Stoneheart because her obligations are over, right? Like, no, zombie polar bear. So we talked about it a lot, but I don't know if I imagine that you still have Game of Thrones available in your top 10.
That is correct.
I wonder if it's season 4 or if it's another season.
So Game of Thrones season 4 is your number 2.
Yes.
Game of Thrones season 4 is my number 1.
Nice. Okay.
In my opinion, it is the greatest season of television in television history for all the reasons you said. Season 3, very close second. And season 1 is a very close third. I mean, I think you can argue for seasons 1, 3, or 4. And seasons 1, just all the things are happening. The scene in season 1 where Littlefinger and Varys are in the, and Arya hears them in the kind of down in the basement or in the dungeon or whatever that's area. The scene where Tywin is skinning the animal and talking the best things about season 1, it was just great dialogue. Just no CGI, nothing exploding, no big great things, no zombie polar bears, no dragons even. Just
I don't know if you got cut off or I did. In case you got cut off, yeah,
having technical difficulties.
There we go. Yeah, we froze up before the shows too. I don't know if you got cut off or I got cut off. Okay. Yeah, keep going.
Sorry about that. So, just again, there's so many things that happen in season 1. The dialogue, Tywin skinning, talking to Land, there was none of this big stuff. And season 3, lots of great stuff, lots of great intrigue. The Red Wedding at the end of season 3. But season 4, on the heels of the Red Wedding, which we both had as the greatest scene in TV show history, all of the events after that in season 4, it was just nonstop action. It felt like the storyline, like almost the first 3 seasons of the show were almost all just preamble to like all the stuff that happened in season 4. I mean, so many things, the storylines got pushed forward in dramatic fashions, and so many good things happened. Tyrion's trial, and then Tywin being killed. It's really, really hard. I mean, well, I think it's impossible to top it because I think it's the number 1 greatest season of television ever. And so I haven't given my number 2, but so Game of Thrones season 4 is my number 1.
it's such a shame that the D&D went away from all the stuff that made Game of Thrones incredible, like
Mhm.
the great dialogue, like you mentioned, when Arya overhears Varys and Illyrio plotting like what they're gonna do, like you had like it's great because like she has no idea what they're talking about,
Right.
but
It was
like
Illyrio, right? I said Littlefinger. It was Illyrio,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So like you like one of them says the other, soon the lion will be at the throat of the wolf, stuff like that, and like you kind of like know that they're plotting something, and
Mhm.
like Arya is kind of clueless, like we are. But like what are they plotting here? And then like if you go back and rewatch it, like you get everything. You get all the plotting, all the scheming, all the great like dialogue. Like I said, that's what made the show great to begin with. Not the dragons, not the zombie polar bears. Like the dragons, like the CGI stuff was cool. It was like fun. Like when the dragon burned down the wall, I think that was like the only good aspect of season 7. Just like a fun scene to watch. But that's like that doesn't last very long. And like it's just like I'm not gonna rewatch the dragon burning down the wall again. Like I want to rewatch like all the other stuff. And I used to rewatch all the Game of Thrones stuff, and I just can't rewatch it anymore just because the show got so bad. Um, I feel like that's a topic in itself. Like we could do like top 10 things that
Right.
like that made Game of Thrones bad. It's just there's so many things that ruin the show. Um, so yeah, I don't blame you for having this number one. It was my number two. There's one thing I liked more than Game of Thrones season 4, and I feel like people who have watched this know. So I think I'd rather spoil mine before your number two because
Go for it.
I generally don't know what you have as your number two. Um, so my number one, and you could probably guess what it is too. Um, it is Lost season 1. It's kind of talked about earlier how I said
Right.
like I'd have this later. Um, so I think this is I think this is the difference between binge watching and watching real time, because I watched Lost real time when it was on, like the very first episode I watched. And so I had a week to like digest everything and like kind of like wonder about it. Like I had to wait a whole week,
That would have driven me
um,
nuts. Oh my gosh, that would have driven me nuts with Lost.
it was
Oh.
like so many great things in season 1. Like even in the first the pilot episode where that crazy scene at the beginning when everything's exploding, the plane's
Mhm.
going nuts. I like that first scene was incredible. And then even later in the episode, it was 2 hour episode where you had the polar bear, in the middle of this tropical island. Like what is this doing here? And then to close out the episode, when they hear the French woman repeating her distress signal, and
Mhm.
then Charlie with one of the greatest quotes in TV history, it's like, guys, where are we? And like so that kicked off the season. Then you had Locke, the revelation where you found out that he was in a wheelchair, and then on the island he wasn't in a wheelchair anymore. So it's like, all right, what's going on here? You had the hatch, like
Mhm.
the whole hatch. You're like, oh, what's in here? Like we had a whole summer to think about what was in that hatch. And then when Boone died and the light went on, you're like, oh my god, there's actually someone down there. Like what is going on here? Like what is in that hatch? I remember this is on when I was at Penn State, and I remember going home, driving like 3 people home, to like during spring break or something from Penn State, and dude, all we talked, no joke, all we talked about during the car ride home was Lost. Like our theories. We're like, what is in the hatch? What guys? What do you think's in the hatch? Like we like spent 3 hours talking about the show. Just like okay, what's in the hatch? Like, and then when it came back for season 2, like you found out, and then the show was still amazing, like you said. It was great throughout. But I don't think anything could top the magic of season 1. Watching it live, I think that was the biggest difference here. I think if you watched it live with me at the same time, and you had a week to like process what was going on, and you're like, okay, what do I think about this? What do I think about this? Like, what's happening here? I think it would have been higher on your list. So it was just like a difference of binge watching versus
Mhm.
watching it live.
I hadn't thought about that. Part of the whole, the reason why I watch television is entertainment. And if you could watch a TV show that goes beyond just like, it's not just entertaining you for that 47 minutes that it's on, minus commercial times, or 43 minutes, whatever it is, but like it's entertaining you throughout the week because you're because it's taking up mind space, and you're having conversations about it, and you're wondering, all the curiosity. You're right. When you're binge watching, I watch season 1. You're like, okay, you watch episode 1. You're like, I got to get to the next. What happens? I want to know. I didn't have to wait a summer to figure out what was in the hatch. I had to just click next episode. Right? And so I binge watched the entire series over a Christmas break. Was it like a 2017 or 2018 or 20? I can't remember what year it was. It was over Christmas break. I was still a professor at the time, and I still I remember over Christmas break, I just like spent all day, every day, just like 6 days or something. I don't remember how many. I remember I watched like a season a day, I think, right? Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe a little more. Maybe it took me a little longer, but maybe like over 2 weeks. But I'm pretty much overall at Christmas break, I watched the entire series, and I thought it was awesome. So I think it would have driven me nuts. You're a much more patient person than I am.
Yeah, I mean, we had no choice. Like, it's not like
That's
I could click next episode. We had to wait a whole week, and like sometimes multiple weeks if they went on like Christmas break or spring break or something like that. Like sometimes they take breaks here and there for TV shows, or at least they used to back in the day. This is 2004 when it first came out, and I was it's my 5th year at college, I think. Yeah, my 5th year out of 6. So it was it was awesome. Like I said, we used to theorize about it. I used to do jerks of the week topics about it, and people used to get mad. They're like, come on, like make fun of people, don't talk about Lost. Like people who didn't watch the show, but people who watched the show really appreciated it. I had theories about who Jacob was. I thought it was Aaron the whole time. I thought Aaron grew up and went back to the island and was trying to undo his mom, like going crazy. I had this whole plot like about like how Aaron was Jacob, and I thought it really made sense. I thought they should have gone with it. I think that would have been better than what they did actually. But it was still fun to watch everything, and like there's so many small things in the show. Like how what the black smoke monster was and stuff like that. And they did answer a lot. Like people criticize the show for not answering a lot. I thought they really answered a lot. They didn't answer everything, which is like a little frustrating. But for the most part, like what polar bear, they answered that. Why there was a tattoo on the shark you see at the end of season 1, they answered that. The black smoke monster, they answered that. Like they answered a lot. They answered like why people couldn't find them on the island. Like they answered a lot. So and what the numbers were and stuff like that. So yeah, for sure. Before
I think that everything that mattered from season 1 eventually gets answered.
Yep.
I think so throughout the course of the series.
This is a show that I think is you really benefit from watching multiple times, because as you're watching, you're like, okay, what's going on here? I don't get it. But like if you rewatch it, like you have all these questions, and then you could be like, okay, I know that. So I really enjoyed watching the show again. I think I watched the show like 4 times. So
nice.
Yeah, definitely. My favorite show of all time. So no surprise that it's my favorite season of all time. Before we get to your number 2, this is from Leo. This is something I wrote, and I remember writing this. You've read too much Game of Thrones when you hear Philip Rivers' name and think Philip Rivers has a bastard name. He must be a bastard born in the Trident. I think I'm going to call Rivers Trident Bastard from now on for my power rankings, week 7. I actually remember writing that. Rivers is a bastard name. It's Snow, Rivers, Stone, Flowers. There are like 3, Sand. There are like a couple more. But yeah, so I definitely remember that. So that's pretty funny.
So good.
All right, your number 2. I think I know from what show it is, but maybe you want to reveal to everyone what your number 2 is.
The only show of my all-time greatest show that has not made the list yet is the one and only The Sopranos. And The Sopranos, still is in my mind the best dialogue all throughout the series. I mean, just it's fantastic. And you can go, there's several seasons you can go here, but to me, the best season is season 3. And I just absolutely loved this TV show. So I mean, there were so many great things that happened in that series. You had all like first of all, like they had just killed Pussy Bobentero in season. I'm not cussing, by the way. That was his name in the show. They had just killed him at the end of season 2. So you're reeling from that. You end up having this epic moment where with Tony and the psychiatrist, where she gets raped and she finds out who it is, and you're wondering, is she going to try to violate her professional code of ethics and try to get Tony to go after this guy, and she never does. And then you've got Tony with the craziest affair he has in the entire series with Valentina, and she ends up catching fire. Just crazy. Then you have the Pine Barrens, which is probably one of the most iconic episodes in the entire series. They've got the Russian mafia former Russian military general who gets his head blown off and somehow it's still running through negative 13-degree weather in the woods of a random place in New Jersey.
It's like Rasputin. It was great.
So, dude, so you have that, then you have the Ralphie, the storyline with Ralphie and Tony, they're frenemies, right? These guys are he's his best earner. He's going to be his best captain, but he absolutely hates this guy. And later in the series, he eventually kills him. Absolutely hates this guy. Then you have Jackie April's son, Jackie Jr. trying to make a move. I mean, you have him and Meadow starting to have a relationship. I mean, some of the best moments in the entire show. You have all these incredible things. You have Carmela and Tony's relationship on the brink. The kind of all the entire series, the climax of every storyline, along with just these great moments. Christopher buys Adriana the music club, which really is a turning point in the relationship and a turning point in the show. I mean, there are all these significant moments that you don't really realize how significant they are until you get to seasons 4 and 5, and there's so all of the major storylines of the TV show are all things that really either started or were kind of catapulted during season 3. And it really is just Gandolfini, who plays Tony Soprano, he's a masterful actor of the entire series. But I feel like some of the episodes in season 3 are really just carried by him. You could say that in almost any season. There's a lot of episodes he carries. Just there are a couple moments where he just iconic moments throughout the series. You just go, if you can only watch one season of The Sopranos, season 3 is the one. And kind of to use your bar, I've watched The Sopranos. I think I've watched the entire series 4 times. All the way through over the last 15 years. The show ended in 2007, but I remember watching it in the early 2000s and just just love the show. And you find yourself loving this grotesque character. Tony Soprano is a rapist, serial adulterer, murdering jackass. He's terrible. He's everything you don't want to be in life, and yet you find yourself rooting for this guy and wanting him to win, which is that's the beauty of television writing. They can suck you in, and so I don't know. I really struggled as to whether or not that was my number one, but I give the edge of Game of Thrones season 4. But season 3 of The Sopranos, very close second place.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Season 3 was when they first introduced the FBI, when they were first tapping his house. Was that correct, or was that season 4?
I can't remember if that was season 3 or season 4.
Okay, well, that reveal was okay, now I know who the real bad guys are. So that you root for Tony even more. So if that was season 3, then I completely agree that season 3 is the best. Or if it was season 4, then maybe season 4. But I actually, when they had the FBI on, I was like, yeah, come on, Tony, meet these guys. So that is how I felt about that.
His relationship with Johnny Sack really gets forward in season 3. His mom dies in season 3, doesn't she? I can't remember. I think she died in season 2.
I think it was later. I think it was season 3. I'm not sure
okay.
though. I watched it recently. I actually watched it for the first time. Last football season. Because
I realized it was your first time watching it.
Yeah, it was, because what happened was I got the DVD set for my dad for his birthday back when I lived with my parents, and I thought, okay, maybe we can watch it. And then but then I moved out, so we never had a chance to watch it. And I thought all this time, oh, maybe I'll watch it with my dad one day. And actually, I used to have dinner with my parents, once or twice a week when I used to live by myself, just because it was fun to eat dinner with people, like rather than by myself the whole time.
Right.
But like, yeah, we used to watch TV when I used to come to the house. And like I made the suggestion, like, oh, what about Sopranos I got for you? My dad was like, nah, I don't want to watch it. So okay, so I eventually was like, okay, I'll watch Sopranos by myself eventually, and I just like it never did it. And then you recommended it, so I'm like, okay, I should definitely get into this. So yeah, this last football season was when I watched Sopranos for the first time. So yeah, definitely enjoyed it. I mean, I could see why people love the show. It's a great show. I think I may have suffered from the same thing that binge watchers do, though. Like if I had to watch the show once, 1 hour each week, I think I would have enjoyed it more.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think like being able to stew over everything, like I think that would have given me a greater appreciation for the show. Maybe that's why like a season didn't make it into my top 10, because everything's kind of like mushed together, because I I I I barely remember what was in each season because I just watched it back to back to back. Like
Right.
like I know that they killed Pussy in season 2. I like I remember that because it's the final episode of season 2. Like I know certain things, but like you mentioned the Rasputin guy, and I remember I remember the episode vividly, but I was like, man, what was that really season 3? I thought it was season 2. But I think you're right. I think it was season 3. So like it's just like
Such a good episode.
everything's just jumbled together for me,
Yeah.
that I couldn't pinpoint like one season that I loved more than the other. So like that's why it wasn't in my top 10.
That's a good. I remember I first started watching that show. Okay, I went to college for 2 years and then I dropped out, and I did the 9-year plan, so I went back later, but
Nice.
online. But so I dropped out of college after 2 years. I don't know what I was going to do with my life. I was kind of like, oh, thinking about a couple different careers, and I ended up working at Mealy's Furniture, which is in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, like not too far from your neck of the woods.
I bought stuff from Mealy's Furniture.
Nice. So I was a sales guy there from in 2003. So
Okay.
from like, or like, yeah, so like, whatever it was. So like, I worked there for like 9 months, and like, so this is like spring of 2003. I got a job there, and my first day on the job, I met this guy. I'll never forget this guy. His name was Rich Matteo. I don't even know if he's alive anymore, to be honest. He was in his 60s. I should look him up. Anyway, Rich Matteo. If by chance you're in your 80s and you're watching this, I don't know why you're watching this, but if you are, shout out to you. But anyway, so Rich Matteo says to me, "Oh, have you ever?" He's like, it was a Monday morning. He's like, "Have you ever seen The Sopranos?" I was like, "No, I never have." He's like, "Oh man, oh," he's like, "It was on last night," and he started recounting the previous night's episode, and it was in season 4 at that point, and he's like talking about it. I'm like, okay. He's like, oh, and he's just going on and on. I'm like, all right, well, I guess I got to get into the show. And he's like, I waited till season 4 ended. I went and I rented the DVDs from West Coast Video. Does that even exist anymore? West Coast Video.
I used to love West Coast Video. They had one right by my house.
So I rented the DVDs of the first 3 seasons, and then I eventually caught up, and then I got HBO and I watched it with everyone else. And so, but I remember coming to work, like we'd watch an episode and like coming to work the next day and just be like, oh man, did you see that? And the dialogue with my friends that were watching it, and then my brother started watching it, and my sister, like it ended up being just there was like this kind of this community around the show that kind of a whole enhances the whole experience, which I think you're right. You don't get that with the binging experience.
Yeah, it's definitely a downfall of it. It is convenient to watch everything. Maybe that's something that people should do more, is like watch 1 or 2 hours of a show and then stop for a couple of days and then watch more. I know it's like tempting to keep watching. It's so hard to do, but I think it'll give you like a greater appreciation of it. Like right now, I told you I'm watching Succession. And I'm in the middle of season 1, and I haven't watched for a few days because, like I said, I'm writing my season previews. And like in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to find out what happens next. Like it feels like the old times when we used to watch an episode and then wait a week. So I definitely like that. And by the way, sorry about Mealy's Furniture. And this is something I'd recommend anyone who's like moved into their own house and looking for furniture. Something that like I was surprised by. Like I got you may have even known her. I can't even remember her name, but like I got a phone number of an employee at girls at Mealy's Furniture, and what worked was and I found out this later, was like, it's like, hey, I go up to the salesperson and be like, hey, I'm moving into my own house and I'm looking for like a sofa or something, and like like the girls would be so impressed. Oh, like you're moving to your own house, like that'd be this would be like something that like they'd get into. So that actually like that worked like multiple times, which like I probably should have taken more advantage of, but like still. I that's something I highly recommend as we close out this episode.
That's one way to get a girlfriend. Is that like,
yeah, a phone number even like to start. Like that's something that that is pretty impressive to people. Like, hey, I just got my own house.
The stage of life where I was trying to get a girl's phone number is so long ago for me.
I know.
Like it feels like such like a. But I might as well been another millennium. Like I just almost
was. Almost was.
I mean,
this is back in 2009 or 2010 for me.
I mean, it was it feel like I didn't date really. I didn't care about dating from like pretty much like my mid-20s to my mid-30s. I was just like focused on my career, myself. Like I just didn't care. I didn't go on a single date. I didn't go out. People are like, don't you like want to get married? Don't you want to have a family? Like, I don't care. I just didn't care. And then like I had this all of a sudden moment when I was like 35. I was like, oh crap, I do actually want to have a family. I really do want to have, because like, and then like all of a sudden I was like, okay, I got to figure that out. But like when I met my wife, I just like, hey, you want to go on a date? I didn't like even get her number per se. I didn't even just like, hey, I'm gonna shoot you a text message. It just didn't feel the same. I don't know, like in the early 2000s, like in my early 20s, I was like getting a girl's number was like a big deal.
Yeah.
But that was a long time ago.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I met my wife in 2013. It was actually a party at my house. My cousin, she wanted to have her birthday party here because she's getting her apartment painted. And so I was like, oh yeah, sure. I don't have to drive home anywhere. This is great. And so like there were all these people I didn't know. I knew one person at the party, or maybe two people. And like I was playing beer pong with the only other guy I knew, and like these two girls came in, and like they're like two pretty girls. I was like, Paul, let's beat them in beer pong and then go talk to them. And so like the game lasted very quickly, beat them pretty easily, and then we went over and talked to them, and then like that was my wife. And so like we had like a drunken conversation for like a couple hours. I got her number, and probably like the least gamey move you could do is text a girl like the second you get her number, or like when she leaves. But I texted her at like 10 minutes after she left, because what happened at this party was this other girl, I didn't know her at the time. I eventually like got to know her. She punched another guy in the face right outside my house. And I texted my now wife. I'm like, I can't believe you missed this. This girl punched this guy in the face. And so like my wife still gives me like crap about it. She's like, you texted me like that night we met. And, like I was like, yeah, but it was a cool thing, and it worked, right? And she's like, yeah, I guess so.
So good.
Yeah,
this is very Wildcard Wednesday. We're way off track now.
I know. Yeah. We're Wildcard of the Wildcard right now. So maybe something else to delve into eventually. All right, I guess that's it. I feel like we could do more TV topics as the summer progresses. Like something that entered my head was like top 10 shows that fell off a cliff, because I feel like we mentioned that a couple of times.
Several of ours made it. Yeah,
for sure. All right, do you have anything to plug?
Anyone interested in checking out my stuff? Thecapisfake.com. I actually just did an article this week on I was covering I think I'm going to do this every year. I did a brief article on teams that had a top 30 visit, NFL teams that brought in a top 30 visit. What percentage of those players ended up with the teams that brought them in for visits? Like I was trying to figure out, is it indicative if a team brings in players for a top 30 visit, is it indicative that they're actually interested, or is it a smokescreen, or is it something else altogether? And so I did an article this year. My intention is that every year to track that and try to figure that out. So that's on the website. And then the an article that we posted probably tomorrow will be, I've been diving into the differences between the NFL and the NBA salary cap. So if anyone's interested in learning the differences between how those two leagues run, that article will be posted sometime on Thursday.
That's interesting, because I know there are teams that track that as well. They're very interested in what teams host which players. I can tell you for a fact that I used to do work for one team in the NFL in this regard. They really care about it, and some teams care less,
Mm.
but this team really cared about which prospect visited which teams. So that's an interesting article. I really want to see the data you came up with. Yeah, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. All that would help us out a lot. I'm at walterfootball.com. Tons of updates as usual. Season previews coming soon. Updated fantasy rankings coming maybe I think tonight. So yeah,
Nice.
check all that out on the site. Kenny, I will talk to you in a week or two, and then I'm sure we'll have something new to talk about TV wise.
You the man, Walt.
All right, bye.